Welcome to the show. My name is Jeremy Poole, and I'm the host of The Moment on Real Estate Social, where we explore and celebrate the necessary transformational process one must go through to achieve a high level of success. Today, folks, we have the great pleasure of hanging out with Jennie Wetter. Jennie Wetter is the designated broker and owner of a fantastic boutique luxury brokerage in beautiful Gig Harbor, Washington. Jennie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you for
being here.
being here.
To be here. It's great.
Absolutely. Guys, this is a very special interview for us, not only to have Jennie here, but it's also at our new studio in downtown Tacoma, so that's fantastic. So Jennie, as you know, the show is called The Moment. Mm-hmm. What would you characterize as your defining moment that allowed you to say, you know what, I need to make some changes, and you just went full bore and changed your life?
That's a good question. But I think when I look back at life, there's several, but there's probably one or two that stand out the most. And I think the one that would be the best to share is my crash story, right? Everybody has a crash story, but I crashed pretty hard at the end of the 2008 year. I unfortunately went through a family status change at the same time as I had a young real estate company that was failing.
Okay.
So at the end of 2008, the only thing I had out of my divorce was a failed real estate company and $100,000 in debt. And I said, I am in small town Washington with a master's level education in the medical field. I somehow have a failed real estate company. I have no family here.
Scary.
I'm done. Like,
Wow.
This is crazy. And I was ready to give up. I had sold just about everything I owned. Everything I had left could fit in my car along with my golden retriever.
Jeez.
And we were going to go to Southern California, and I wanted to work at Starbucks and learn to surf. I mean, it was that done. And I had a meeting scheduled with a bankruptcy attorney at 8:30 the next morning, and
Okay.
I'm staring at the paperwork. It was all filled out. And I just sat back and I went, this is not me.
Wow.
I was not raised to do this. This isn't me. I've got to figure this out. So I canceled the appointment. I canceled going to San Clemente and learn to surf. And I just said, I'm going to figure it out.
Excellent. Well, good for you. So when you say that you said, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to jump ship, in fact, I'm going to buckle down and get this done, walk me through some of the decisions that you made that allowed you to take full advantage of that space that you're in mentally and emotionally.
Well, some of it was survival, Jeremy.
Sure.
I mean, truly,
Sure.
right? You're in survival mode. But when you say, look, I am not this person, and I can fix this. You know, I got myself into this, and somehow I can do this.
Yeah.
And at the time, it wasn't necessarily going to be real estate, right? Because as I mentioned, I have a master's level education in the medical field, and I'm like, I can do it, right? This is not my life. But it was just, it started out being survival mode. And actually what happened, I took a job back in the medical field from 9 to 5, just to figure out how to scrape along at the bills.
Yeah.
But that had nothing to do with paying off the debt, right? I had this big debt that I had amassed.
Wow.
And I was extremely, extremely fortunate. I had a referral partnership back in 2008 that I just was very lucky, and I got leads on real estate primarily for buyers. So on my lunch hour, nights and weekends, I sold real estate. And my goal was, as soon as this debt's gone, it's only for the debt, because I'm done. I'm done,
Yeah,
right? And somehow, in the course of 2009, I paid off that $100,000 in debt.
Wow.
And I just remember looking at the debt, and this was, I had to have conversations with the IRS. Of course, I got audited by the state Department of Financial Institutions, because I didn't know you have to pay B&O tax on L&I on every one of your agents, right?
Oh, that was probably a small bill.
Oh yeah, right? So, you're on the phone and you're making settlements with people and just feel, but nonetheless,
Sure.
I just kept watching the debt tick away with every real estate sale. And then I got to the end. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm done, right? I don't ever have to sell another house.
Yeah.
But I had looked back at the course of everything that had happened from the time I started in real estate at the end of 2004 to this was now the end of 2009. And I went, you just paid off $100,000 in debt in the worst year of real estate ever.
Right.
And you're gonna quit. Like, maybe you should think about this, and maybe you should just keep going.
Sure.
So that's kind of what happened.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That's...
And I don't really remember anything about that year other than having my head down and just functioning. I guess if
that's
that
a great
makes
story.
Sense, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think that's what you have to do when you're in that place. It's do or die, right? It's either sink or swim.
Yeah.
And you're going to make the decision to either drown or I'm going to make it to land.
Yeah. And I was all alone too.
You're all alone.
I have no family here in Washington. My entire family's in Wisconsin. I mean, of course, I have great friends and stuff, but it was me and the golden retriever, and so I don't really want to go back there.
No.
But when I look at,
from the looks of things, it looks like you're really far away from that. So I think that's going to happen anytime soon.
you know what, you're probably right, but it's always in the back of my mind, always. And there is some motivation that's what keeps me going every day, is going, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm not going to let that happen again. So, going through tough times, I think is great, right? Nobody wants to fall on hard times, and nobody wants to crash like that. And everybody wants to be picked up by somebody else when it happens. But when all you have to rely on is yourself, and you got to figure it out.
Yeah. I cannot agree more. I think that's why we're doing this show, right? Is to celebrate that forging process. Sometimes when you go through those hard things, you just see darkness, and you hope there's light. You hope that there's a little bit of light at the end of this long, dark, lonely tunnel. But ultimately, I feel like us as human beings, we have to go through that to figure out just how strong and fantastic we are, being resourceful and creative and coming up with solutions. So my gut tells me that your background in the medical field has aided your career in real estate.
Absolutely. Like so many careers that are not real estate, they have a customer service element to them, or what makes you great at one thing is your ability to be empathetic.
Yes.
And so what drew me to my specialty, if you will, in the medical field, and then my career post that and pre-real estate, all had to do with my ability to be empathetic, to see and recognize a need, to connect with people, and then to try and go, okay, where's a business angle here, right? How can we make something happen here? So when real estate came along, it was, well, okay, what do I have to offer that's different? Yeah. The market in 2004 was, for lack of a better word, just very unprofessional. Yeah. So I moved to small town Washington from midtown Atlanta, 4 million to 4,000.
Wow.
And I thought I was going to get some big sexy job in Seattle, because that's what I was kind of poised to do. Yeah. And I realized that Kingston is an hour and 45 minutes one way, including a boat, to Seattle.
Yes.
Like, this is not going to happen, right? No, yeah. So then it was, oh my goodness, what are you going to do to make a living? And so you're looking at all of your options of what you can do based out of Kingston. Beautiful place. Don't get me wrong. I love Kingston. It's gorgeous. But wow, what am I going to do? And so I heard about an opportunity to learn both real estate and mortgage. And my brother was in the mortgage business back in Wisconsin at the time. And I called him up and I said, what's your worst nightmare? Yeah. And he said, stupid real estate agents. I said, oh, okay. Not surprised. Yeah. And he said, so how would you feel if there were, a real estate agent who knew mortgages well, and that could be kind of a one-stop shop, and, oh, by the way, also had a business background and maybe knew a little bit about customer service. What do you think? And he said, well, that would just, that would be awesome, right? So I had some pretty lousy experiences with real estate brokers selling properties in Atlanta, and just knew that they didn't have a very good reputation. And I thought, well, you know, I've done some other things before.
Yeah.
I think maybe I can bring a business background, a professional background. I had risk management training, and I had this customer service or ability to empathize with people. And I just said, I'm going to give it a shot.
That makes a lot of sense. And in fact, just to jump in there on that piece, I've noticed that about you. The first day I met Jenny in her office, I feel like oftentimes when you're talking to somebody new, you're kind of anticipating what they're going to say, and you're thinking to yourself what you're going to say next. And I feel like a lot of people can sort of unconsciously sense that. When I was talking to you for the first time, when we met, I feel like you really took the time to meet me. You took the time to look me in the eyes, and you weren't in a rush. You were willing to hear me out and to hear what I was up to, and it was a very natural conversation. I think I intended to be there for 5 minutes, but I think I was there for a half hour.
You were. I think it was even longer,
even
actually.
longer. We're just having a great conversation. But especially if I'm looking to sell a home that's worth a few $1 million, which is the market that you're in, that's important to talk to that individual, not be so in a rush to make that commission check, and really focus on service. So,
well, and just to kind of stop you right there, because
Yeah.
I think you made such a great point when you're talking to real estate brokers in how to be more successful.
Yeah.
Is I think some of the training programs that people go through, it's you got to have a script, and you got to have your book, and you've got to have all of these things. And I completely disagree.
Yes.
I absolutely completely disagree. I think the number one thing you can do when you meet a new client or even a prospective client is just listen.
slow down.
Slow down and listen. And when you said so many people think about the next thing that they're going to say,
Right.
it should be the last thing on your mind, because you don't know the next thing you're going to say, because it needs to be based on what they're telling you.
And it's not about you.
Correct.
It's about them.
But for some reason, so many people are trained that it is about you.
Sure.
Right? I
Sure.
mean, I've listened to coaching seminars and watched the way other people do things, and it's just,
Yeah.
and I kind of just sit back and go, I can't.
Yeah.
No.
And it's too systematic. It's too mechanical. It seems very unauthentic.
Right.
And I think in order to be successful at the level that you are, you got to be genuine.
Right.
You got to be genuine.
Especially now and going into the future, when there's so much pressure from technology, if you will, or people who say you can take the brokers out of real estate, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you are inauthentic and if you essentially walk in and act like a machine,
Right.
well, fine.
Right.
A machine can do that.
Sure.
But the reality is, I think as technology takes over our lives more and more and more, there's actually an increased need for the human element.
The
in
human
there.
element. That's where I was going.
Right.
You beat me to
It's
it.
it's the increased need for the human element. At least that's how I see it. And of course, I'm hanging my hat on that, because I'm hoping
It should be
that's
a
how it
wonderful
goes.
experience.
Yeah.
It should be a wonderful experience that involves a human being. Could you go about it and structure it in a way that you do it through an application? Probably. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, people want to work with a human. They want to be involved. It's a very emotional transaction.
That you just hit the nail on the head. And we all know this. Of course, it's an extremely emotional transaction. But when you're in the midst of it and your clients just start to hit tilt, it's how you're able to react to it and just be there as a shoulder for them, or obviously we attempt to guide them to the next step.
Right.
But recognizing that no matter who your client is, whether it's a first-time home buyer or somebody who's in the midst of a difficult situation and has to sell, or somebody buying or selling, a CEO of a company buying or selling a luxury property, all of these people are going to hit this ridiculous tilt point. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but just about everybody who's going through the buying or selling process, and probably yourself and me when we're doing it ourselves, hit this point where it's like they lose it, right? They just lose it. And sure, you can have an application that's going to tell you what to do next, but when they can pick up the phone and call a person who's just going to listen and say, these are my thoughts, my advice, these are things I think we should do next, and oh, by the way, we've got this.
And I've gone through this many times. It's what I do. In fact, I have 3 other people going through it right now.
Well, yeah.
And collectively, here's what we've suggest in these kind of situations.
Absolutely.
So, talk to me a little bit about your concierge service.
Well, the concierge service, I guess I didn't come up with that term, but I guess it's kind of been coined that in, there's a myth out there, I guess, if you will, that if you are buying or selling a home, it's fun, right?
At first it is.
Right? Okay, if you're a buyer, it can be fun, but my impression of most people who go through the selling process, it's not a lot of fun. It's really not. And so if somebody's trying to tell you it's going to be fun, it's not. And as a seller myself and watching people go through this, I recognize that it's not fun for one. And more importantly for two, the way that marketing has shifted and where it's going in the future is everything is about first impression and presentation. Right. And so that means as a seller, you have to work so hard to have your property looking incredible so that the day it hits the market, together with the marketing materials that have been put out there, people want to buy it, right? Okay, that is not a fun process. And for many people, there are reasons that they can't handle it themselves, or they're just so resistant to doing it that you're just like, So I reached a point where I recognized that I could walk in and say, look, I cannot understate the importance of what you have to do here, but we've got it. Just trust me, give me somewhat of a budget, and the keys.
And get out.
Pretty much. But seriously, I mean, we will handle contractors, we will handle whatever it is that needs to be handled, and in certain situations where it's warranted, we'll go so far as to pay the bills and have them repaid at closing.
That sounds fantastic. Walk me through a scenario on
where this has worked.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a couple of them. I mean, where I initially started using it was a couple of situations where someone had just lost a loved one, a parent. In both cases, it was a parent who, mom's lived in this house for 35 years. It's so emotional. I can't touch it, right? In one situation, it was a reverse mortgage, and they were just going to give the keys away back to the bank. And I walked in and I said, don't do this. Don't. But they said, but we don't have any money. And I said, it's okay, right? So the house was kind of older. It was kind of a mess. Mom had been there a long, long time. And let's just get it cleaned out. We're going to put new carpet in. We're going to paint it. We're going to clean up the yard. And oh, by the way, you don't have to pay for any of this. And then you're going to reap the benefits at the end. Wow. And of course, because, there's a selfish component to this for me too, because I know what the properties need to look like when they hit the market to sell. It's good business, right? The properties have to be presented a certain way to create the first impression to get people in the door. We have the tools to do that. But when I hear other colleagues, talking about this, I don't think a lot of people are grasping that they probably should consider offering this. Sure, is there a risk? Well, absolutely. I'm putting out thousands and thousands of my own capital. But this is where the trust factor comes in.
And I think this is a fantastic segue into the question I've been waiting to ask you this entire time. This is the first time I've interviewed anybody who had this going on. I think you're going to be pretty surprised. Jennie, it's my understanding that nearly your entire team is comprised of past clients. What the heck?
Well, I don't know.
Happen?
I don't know, because it's not like I went to my past clients and I said, hey, do you want to join my team? No, not at all. But I think I've thought about this, because it occurred to me not long ago, because it's not something you think about every day, like, oh, you were my client, you were my client. But it just kind of occurred to me that, wait a minute, these people are part of my network and part of my team. And I think it obviously speaks to a trust factor that goes both ways.
And I think the experience, if the transaction was successful, smooth, and they said, you made me feel so amazing, you look like you're doing well financially, I want this too. I want to be able to serve people, give back, and make a good living.
Absolutely. Not necessarily my transaction was this smooth and you made me feel amazing though. So I think it's important. I really do. I think it's important to clarify that, because not every transaction is smooth. And no transaction is smooth. And I don't think that there's any buyer or seller who feels amazing at points along the way. But I think when you have someone that you just know has your back. Right? I had someone tell me yesterday, we're closing next week on a property, and they're down in Scottsdale. They haven't been a part of it. They had their house on the market for a year, and it had been a failed transaction right before closing, right? It was awful. Wow. And then those
are the best ones.
Well, they are kind of the best ones, but I get the phone call and they say, please help. And of course I do, and do exactly what I just said I did. Go ahead, get in your motorhome, head to Scottsdale, give me the keys. Wow. We got this, and we sold the house in a couple of days, and it's closing. But what she said to me yesterday, I just thought it was so sweet, because we had blips along the way, which to me were not, a big deal at all. But she said, I cannot tell you how much it meant that you always made a point of just sending us a quick email saying, everything's okay. I don't want you to worry. Everything's okay. Right. She said, because we're down here in Scottsdale and we're just pins and needles because of what had happened to us before. And she said, it just made all the difference. And it was one of those light bulb moments to me, because I said to her, I said, I appreciate you sharing that, because it seems like it feels natural that we're going to always do that, but it's something that I can easily share with other brokers. Like, this is such an easy piece. Like, just reassure them all the time.
Yes. Because it's part of the human condition to worry, especially when you have your baby in some other state, wondering if it's actually going to get sold. And I kind of need the money.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Interesting. So for the thousands of people who are watching right now, I'm sure a good portion of them are wondering, I wonder if Jennie would hire me. Is it part of the requirement that they have to sell a house through you, or are you open to are you open to working with people that just share your enthusiasm for helping people? Or kind of talk to me about some of the characteristics that you're looking for and somebody that you might hire on your team.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned at the beginning, I have a boutique brokerage, and we are a small group of people, and I don't really have a desire to ever be a big group of people, because I worry when groups get too big that
you lose the culture.
The culture, the authenticity, that some of that goes away. But we are a family. What comes across at our company is, you can trust who you're working with. There is no backstabbing, there's no cutthroating, and everybody knows that we do things ethically, by the book, by the law, and 100% in the best interests of our clients. And if that feels like a place that would be a good fit, then absolutely, give me a call or go onto my website and shoot me an email. That's fine. But no, I'm not going to give the big, rah call me, because that's not who we are.
Absolutely, that's phenomenal. I was trying to push her for that, because I know some of you are going to be reaching out to me, so I'd rather direct this call, sir.
No problem.
If you had a chance to do it all over again, and you had a pretty amazing, crazy, exciting ride, would you do it all over again in some ways? And if you could, what part?
I have thought about this a lot, I'm sure. Right. And at each step of the way, you go, would I change something? What would I change? What should I have done better? Sure. Right? Especially with, just the crazy roller coaster of my career path, right? Like, again, what am I doing here? This is not who I'm supposed to be. But at the end of the day, when I look at my life where it is right now, I have absolutely everything I could want. You know, I
Yes.
have a wonderful fiance, a wonderful dog, a wonderful home, and an amazing, amazing team of people at Infinity. And we work with incredible people all day, every day, you know, that we serve. And so I'm afraid that if I changed anything, I wouldn't be where I am today. And
love hearing
so
that.
I would probably, I would probably do it all again.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've thought about that a lot too, and that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because I've definitely had a lot of big ups and a lot of downs in my short stint of being a businessman, and I don't think I'd be who I am. I don't think I'd be enjoying this opportunity. I don't think I'd be here without the times of being thrown into the furnace and going through some unfortunate situations.
Well, and I think we understand that it is what makes us.
Sure.
And another piece of advice I think I would want to give to brokers is to keep in mind that you have to be flexible and you have to be adaptable all the time, because you know, just because every day is completely different and crazy in our world, that's one thing. But even when you look at your life as a broader picture in general, because it's easy to want to have everything scripted, but then if it doesn't go according to script,
Then what do you do?
Then what do you do, right? So being able to be flexible, being able to go, if 5 years from now this is all entirely different, then that's okay, right? Because you're gonna be, if all you know about yourself is, you know, I'm strong, I'm gonna figure it out.
That's all you need.
That's all you need.
That's all you need.
Absolutely, that's all you need, and you're just keep believing in yourself.
Because it's out there.
Yeah.
The people, the solutions, the money,
Yeah.
the opportunities, it's all out there. But I think you have to be whole with yourself, regardless of where you're at.
Right.
If you're living in your car, maybe you're wealthy. Just know that you're enough. And things tend to go your way from there.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You mentioned that you had an opportunity to live out your pipe dream. I'd love to hear more about this story.
Well, this has a little bit to do with the post-crash story and the evolution of how things went after that. So one of the things I did to get myself through the total down and outs,
Yeah.
as I'd mentioned, I had just gone through a divorce, and I'm out in small town Washington. I'm like, okay, who am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
And so I played this little game with myself that said, if I won the lottery, money's absolutely no object, tomorrow I win the lottery, what would I do? Well, I have a passion for Formula One auto racing. I've always had a little bit of passion for auto racing in my blood, but Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsports, and it's all around the world. So I said, okay, if I won the lottery, I would do two things. One would be I would go buy a really amazing Italian sports car that fit my dog and me only, and I would have all the state troopers on notice that I was going to prepay all my tickets after I learned to drive it, and we were going to take a road trip. And then I was going to go in 1 year to every Formula One race in the world. I was going to travel the Formula One circuit and go to 21 countries and go to every race.
That sounds amazing.
Well, that was cool, right? That was like, if I won the lottery. And for some reason, that silly exercise just helped me define a little bit more about, you know, who am I? What do I love when I'm no longer someone's wife? Which, you know, candidly, I moved to Washington to be part of a family. And so anyway, I had this silly pipe dream, right? Well, then a couple years go by, and let's fast forward to 2011, and I was like, wait a minute, I could potentially live out this bucket list. I'm not going to go to every Formula One race in the world in 1 year, but why not, if I have the bucket list that I'm going to go one country at a time, and I'm going to see the world at Formula One races. Like, how cool is this? And then wouldn't it be even more amazing if somehow I got my opportunity in Formula One? Like, there's just something about me that is alive when I'm near a racetrack that I should be in marketing for Formula One, or, you know, something silly, right? So I started along this bucket list, and I went to a couple of Formula One races. And,
Where
well, I started at the US. Of course, they built a new track just for Formula One in Austin in 2012. And I said, you know, there I go. I'm going to have my first one.
Sure.
And just happened by the ridiculous set of circumstances to get weaseled into McLaren's VIP suite.
Wow.
And sitting there, standing over their pit garage, like, you know, anyway,
Wow.
access you can't buy. Doesn't matter.
That's fantastic.
The following year, I met my fiance. And part of the connection to, you know, us ultimately really knowing that we were going to click was he's an avid motorsports fan and happens to have a rather famous brother-in-law who is a former Formula One racer, works in Formula One,
Very
you know,
nice.
all of these things. So, you know, I had shared, like, I was kind of really serious about it. Like, my dream is to work in Formula One.
It's right there in front of you.
Well, I didn't quite know it at the time, but it was like, you know, this is really cool. So I kind of would think to myself, like, I've got one foot out the door and the other on a banana peel, because the day my opportunity comes, you know, I'm out. Right? But the flip side was, I was selling real estate in this amazing place. And I was bragging every day about where we live, right? Where we live, why we live here, how cool it is to live here. This is the greatest place on earth. You're not going to find any place else that's more beautiful. But yet my brain is, you know, somewhere out here.
Sure.
Anyway, one day, Brian literally came to me and he said, okay, I hear you. Yeah. I don't want you to go. And I'm really going to miss you, because it would suck, because obviously this isn't going to work out. But if this is really what you want, I'll make the phone calls tomorrow. And I just sat there like, whoa, this is crazy. And I took it in, and I thought about it, because, you know, I was pretty serious.
You've been kind of planning on doing that.
Well, it was more just like, wow, because nobody ever gets this opportunity. And so if you get it, you have to take it. But what it was another one of those defining moments, Jeremy, is what it was. It was, here you go, here's this pipe dream that you've had in the back of your mind on a silver platter. Here you go.
What do you do?
And I went, this isn't my life.
That's awesome.
My life is selling real estate and building my company back up right
Having
here.
or wanting what you have, I think that's rare, right? I think we all want to get to a point in life where the things that you want, you have.
Right. And that's exactly what it was. It was like, I don't need to have this foot out the door and have this pipe dream anymore, because you're right. My pipe dream is right here. And so that's where the post-crash story really ends.
That's great.
And that was in 2012. That was the very end of the post-crash story, because I had gotten myself back to a place where life was good. But that was the moment I knew that this is where the rest of my life is going to be. This is where my career is going to be, and I'm going to make it happen. And so we've gone slowly, because that's again how I feel it needs to be, and I want it to be. But, you know, now we're in a place where we're like, okay, let's go, let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal story. I didn't know that. That's great. Thank you for that. So you're the leader of a great team. You guys have what, 13 brokers?
12.
12? 12 amazing. I've met most of them. Fantastic people. What does the word leadership mean to you? Because it's very clear that they see you as such.
Well, I appreciate that. Leadership to me definitely does not mean somebody who can herd lemmings and get them to walk. It's the opposite of that. I truly believe that leading by example is the most important thing.
And I see that in you. I mean, this isn't just me talking to camera to make you feel good.
Thank you.
I truly see that in you. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I feel like you have to lead by example, and you know, I can't tell somebody to work harder and not be the hardest working person myself, or I can't tell somebody you have to always do something with the highest degree of integrity if I'm not doing it, right? So I guess that's how I view leadership is, and who I respect ultimately as leaders. Right. But I see my whole team as a group of leaders because they're phenomenal.
They are great people.
Yeah.
Well, Jennie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week.